name is Jackie Fletcher, and tonight I want to talk to you about what losing 100 pounds and writing a novel have in common. Once upon a time, there was a young girl, and every night she would go home from school and she would cry herself to sleep because the kids at school would make fun of her and the fact that she was overweight. And so each night before bed, she would get down, clasp her hands, and say, please, 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 let me wake up tomorrow then. And every morning she would wake up, and she would look down at her body, and it would be the same body that it was the night before. So she continued this magical thinking for some time, until she got to the place where she needed to lose more than 100 pounds. To be continued. Once upon a time, there was a girl who would go home from school, and every afternoon she would lie on the floor with a notepad and write story after story after story after story. And before bed, she would put them in this bookcase of notebooks, and she would get down on her knees and say, please, 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 let me become a published author. Let me be a published author. When I wake up tomorrow, I'm going to be a published author. And of course, in the morning, the stories were still there, but she was not a published author, as it turns out. So of course by now you've figured out that both girls were me. And luckily, in my 20s, I stumbled upon a 3-step process that I used to create change in my life when the change and the goal seemed so far away and insurmountable that I didn't know that it would be possible. So I did 3 things. The first thing I did was I actually put my imagination to use for me, and I used it as an aspirational tool. So I did close my eyes again, and I thought, okay, let's just pretend for a minute that I've become a healthy person. Let's just pretend for a minute that I've become a published author. What would I look like? What would my life look like? And I got very, very specific about exactly what my life and body and self would look like. I didn't know at the time that I was doing a technique called visualization, but that athletes do when they visualize a win before a big game. So that was the first thing I started doing. It was really interesting. What started happening is that I began to believe that, well, maybe it is possible. Maybe I can get there, because I could just maybe see that it would be possible. The second thing I did, though, was I had learned early on that just doing this didn't work for me. And so I combined it with inspired action. So every day I did something toward both of these goals. And so what I did is I sat down at one point. I said, okay, let's just say we're going to get there. What are some things that I might have to do in order to do this? And I broke them down into the smallest possible steps I could, so that even me, even I, could do it. So for instance, one of the things I did early on is instead of driving past my mailbox up to the garage, I walked out to the mailbox to get my mail and walked back in. Very, very small little thing. And another thing I did, in order, because I wanted to write a novel, is I started writing 2 sentences a day. If I can't write 2 sentences a day, I mean, come on, that's so easy. Even I can do that. So eventually what happened is that the wins started building on themselves. First there were 2 sentences, then there was a paragraph, then there was a page, then there was an entire manuscript. Woo! And I started feeling really good. And this vision I had, I could see even more clearly. The third thing I did was I created a structure of support around myself for those times when I knew I would fail, because I would fail. And I knew that somebody would have to help me back up, and I knew that I would have to have the tools around me so that if nobody was there to do it for me, I would have to learn how to do it myself. So I started reading books about nutrition. I started clearing out my cupboards so that the Doritos and the Oreos were not in my cupboards. I joined a writer's group with people who believed that I could do what I said I was going to do. And those 3 things have led me to the place I am today, standing before you, where I have lost more than 100 pounds. I kept it off for about 15 years. And I am a published author, too. Yay! Woo! Thank you. So, what do losing 100 pounds and writing a novel have in common? They have me in common. But what do all of you and I have in common? We all have in common the ability to achieve dreams, no matter how hard they seem or how far away. We have the ability to achieve our dreams.